life. We are very excited today that we have a returning hero, Shiro, I guess I should say, from a longtime member, founding staff minister for this center, and who has been off in the world doing all kinds of wonderful things. She's back with us today to speak on this, what it does, or the way it works, rather, the way it all works. I put in the title just to give her a little extra spurt. And so, without anything further, I will welcome to the stage Angela Harmon, the Reverend.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Feels like home.
Good.
I actually lived in Garden Hills for 12 years, right up the street, 76 East Wesley. I could actually walk here if I was still living this way, but I don't live over here anymore. But my heart has returned, evidently. So, how it works, the way it works, is a subject that I'm piggybacking off of from last week, the thing itself. And I remember finding this teaching too by ways of the radio, the jazz station. But I also want to start out the way it works with this, is that it will work immediately, eventually, or eternally. And the how part is not our part. The how part is the God part. If we're saying that everything is it, this is it, I'm it, you're it, the world is it, the food we eat is it, the birds that fly are it, the car we drive is it. So if everything is it, how do we get those things? We either got them right away, like a cup of coffee in the back, or we got it eventually, because with COVID, we were all sequestered, and eventually we all came back together. Or it's eternally, which is that presence that started from nothing, and out of nothing and out of no way, everything has ever been made has been made. So here we are, human beings playing around on the planet. And one of the human beings that was playing around on the planet, whose birthday is today, who's not on the planet anymore physically, but spiritually, Martin Luther King Jr. And I also have a cousin, a niece, really, I call her, but she's cousin by way of the family tree, who's out having this adventure. And I called her and wished her happy birthday today. And I said, did I get it right? Are you actually born on Martin Luther King's birthday? She's like, I am. I'm like, imagine that, having somebody who was born. He was a minister as well. He was one of the most activist people, our civil rights activist movement during my youth. Died of an assassination April 4th. And as we know, the season of nonviolence is coming up. And he's actually a part of why we have the season of nonviolence. He and Mahatma Gandhi. So as we look at how it works, each of us have our teachers that we stand on the shoulders of, it seems. And as we think about that, I think about this immediately, eventually, eternally on how it works. I think as humans, we're not patient at all. I know I'm not. So as we think about this, I think about the song "That's the Way of the World." I didn't prompt um, um, anyone to play any songs for me today, and we've got our multi-talented Vance back there doing everything. But if I could cue him now, I would ask him to say, "That's the Way of the World," or play "That's the Way of the World" by Earth, Wind, and Fire. And if you remember that song has lyrics in it that says, when we're born as children, we have this heart of gold. And then we talk about the streets are paved with gold. So, we always have these analogies that kind of match. And then what it says in that line is that the world will make your heart turn cold. So every time we consider our children, our childlikeness in us, and then one thing after another happens, either eventually or immediately, we're not thinking about the eternally. The eternal is the power that made everybody, that made everything. But here we are. I want it now. We're in a society of I want it now. And if we looked at the video where it said heal, whole, and healthy, was it? That's all internal. You showed all of it was quiet, taking, even the baby was chilling. Right? Didn't he, mommy, daddy? Just what is this? And just intrigued with it in the water and the rocks and the nature of it all. So, what keeps that childlikeness in us so we don't let the way of the world cause us not to remember the eternal because that's where we come from? So, some of the movies that I love, I'm going to say, if I had to write this, is this journal my daughter got that I kidnapped because I said I'm going to use this with Happy Academy to kind of use as icebreaker. So, one of the things was, well, what are the top 5 movies if you had to pick top 5 movies? So, in my essence, top 5 movies for me would be It's a Wonderful Life, The Godfather, what a contrast, right? Mrs. Doubtfire, The Wizard of Oz, and The Lion King. So, those would be my top 5. Not that those are my only 5, but if I had to pick 5, those would be my top 5. But so, as I thought about the talk and the movie was coming on yesterday, so if I had to put in the top 10, it would be Jurassic Park. So Jurassic Park was on yesterday, and one of the lines at the beginning, because Alan and Ellie were diggers. They were digging for dinosaurs, and here comes this scientist that comes and is like, I need you to check this out. And so before this inventor arrives, they're digging and they're looking at what it looks like in the computer, and the guy says, don't touch the computer because you'll lose the vision. And so he's trying not to touch it, and he touches it, and then it gets all static. And he says, I hate computers. And Ellie says, the feeling is mutual. So I really took that part to say that whatever we put out there in the how comes back to us. So when she said the feeling is mutual, what are we putting out there? Are we putting mutual feelings out there? What are we putting? I hate computers out there, or do we? Now, I picked up on that being a former IBMer. It's like he hate computers, man. You couldn't even do your job without you. So I loved computers. So I ended up in a world was full of computers. So he didn't like computers, but he was a digger. So he didn't have to work with them. He really, truly got mutual reward from what he loved. So I picked that movie for another reason too. I didn't write it down, but I'm gonna try to paraphrase one of the watch it again. I just love Steven Spielberg. All the Anna Jones, all of those have messages, but they said God created dinosaurs, God destroyed dinosaurs. God created man. Man created dinosaurs. Dinosaurs destroyed man. And then the woman says, women inherit the earth. So here we are, women. We're inheriting the earth. And not that we don't coexist with all. I thought about Harriet Tubman with that one as we think of MLK Day. And as we think of MLK and being the person in the package that God gave me, Harriet Tubman stands out. And she stands out for me because she couldn't read or write. But this woman lived to be almost 100 years old and freed probably as many souls or more. And as I think about the fact that it happens immediately, eventually, or eternally, that's when those energies that are not present with us live through us. And we get to decide whether we're going to be eternally grateful and eternally happy and eternally creative and eternally inventive, or we can be immediately angry, immediately harmful, immediately, because that's not going to last. It's not in the eternal, but it can be very immediate. You've got a 6-year-old shooting a teacher in a class. That's immediate. Eventually, we will know more about why that is and the healing that will need to take place in that. But the immediate, and sometimes it's eventual, good or bad. And I'm just pointing out the good this time because I'm going to reflect on the book. Because I think about the Elvis Presleys and the Aretha Franklins and the Whitney Houstons and the Michael Jacksons and all those people have left us, but they're eternal because of the message that they left. Respect is one of the ones I really love, and one of the things that we do to know that there is something bigger than us is to respect that power, that it's eventually going to work eternally. And sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes I get every now and then you'll think of someone and they call immediately, don't they? It's like, I just thought about you. What? And then this book called Birds of a Feather. And this book came out of this center, if you will, because I became ordained in 2015. This center was started 2012. And I ended up going to another center, maybe 2019. So there was some time spent with CSL Midtown. So I had this thing called Prayer Works that I did on Monday nights because I traveled a lot and I wanted to still stay connected even when I wasn't in the center. And I kept saying I wanted to write a book. I want to write a book. And I thought it was going to be on metaphysics because, it's movies and music and metaphysics that moved me. It's just, I got to tell the people about it some way. But I didn't even know where to start. And I've started a lot of places, but it wasn't coming together. So my granddaughter was the youngest baby at a family reunion, and they gave her a Dr. Seuss Cat in a Hat book. And it was real small, and it was in rhyme. And I said, I bet I could do a book like that. So I promised my prayer group, I'm going to do something because I want to make this happen. So it's like immediately, no, but eventually. And so over a weekend, I wrote the story that I'm going to read to you. And when I left IBM in 2020, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But faith kicked in and says, well, you're not going to get a new boss because I could have stayed. It says it's time for something new. So I prayed about it, woke up, covered about it, said, I'll see you about it, and left about it. That June was my last date. That August, I saw an ad on television that said, if you want to publish a book. So let me send this little script in I wrote for prayer work called Birds of a Feather. See what they do with that. That's September 2020. I'm on the way to the beach, what you saw there, and I get a call for an offer to publish. And my family was doing some different things because I think you realize that I had learned that I didn't even know my own true identity, that I didn't even know my father was. So that same year, I discovered his name and all of that from DNA ancestral. But when you start finding out the truth, you think it's going to be kumbaya, but it is quite the opposite when the truth starts to come out. So lo and behold, did I not know that this Birds of a Feather book was going to be more than a notion. So I asked, what bird doesn't flock? Since I didn't seem to be feathering together as this book decided it was going to come to life. And I said, I must be an eagle because eagles don't flock. They mate, but they don't flock. So as I started out with this journey and they showed me what the illustration was and I signed up and all of this book came into life. And eventually it became this instead of just a email with paper and words. I hired an illustrator. You'll see all the colors when you order it. This was something that I thought I was going to give up on and said, the heck with it. I didn't use that word. So eventually, this was a journey because it started, like I said, September 2020, and it was not published until December 2022. So this was a journey, and we can be immediately upset or immediately happy. We can eventually know that it's going to come out in right timing, or we can give up on it eventually and it never happened. And the story I hope that you hear that I read in closing is eternal. And if I wanted to prompt a song after this, it would be Quincy Jones, Tevin Campbell's Tomorrow. So play that when you get home. But the book called Birds of a Feather by Angela Harmon, and the illustrator is Erica Ramsey Bowen. And this book is dedicated to children of all ages, inspired by my hatchlings. Once you learn to fly, trust your ability to soar. The wind will do the rest. Enjoy the journey. The story being told happens to be true. Find the lesson in the Three Amigos coup. It happened one summer, my daughter Jamila's major bummer. Out of nowhere, needing a place to nest, is my youngest of three with her children and her pets. Lucky, Tweety, and Stormy, a parakeet trio, draped in feathers, looking straight out of Rio. The dominant bird is Tweety, the only male. Yellow is his color from head to tail. Stormy looks like the sky on a cloudy day. Lucky's name suited her nature all the way. They didn't always get along in the space they lived daily, even though their behavior was somewhat scaly. Placed on the balcony for fresh air from time to time, to the top of the cage, the two of the three would often climb, possibly to discover an open door or begin an adventure, the world to explore. One day on the balcony, while planting flowers and sage, I must have created an opening when adjusting the cage. I didn't notice the gap, which was ever so slight, as I gazed at the planted garden with sheer delight. As the day was ending and the sun was set, as the setting of the sun, Jamila noticed instead of three birds, there was only one. I had no idea that the cage had opened and two had taken flight. Stormy and Tweety had flown away into the night. Surprised and alarmed, we wondered what happened, yet we kept our cool to avoid snapping. Were they hurt or eaten by a bird of prey, possibly that falcon that came lurking just the other day? We didn't want to alarm or give the kids a fright, though deep inside I knew Stormy and Tweety were all right. If Lucky could say what, if Lucky could, what would she say? Where did they go? Why did she stay? Did she warn them not to go? Or did they ask her to? And she said no. With Lucky inside and we settled to sleep, after a prayer together, we didn't hear a peep. We woke to check the balcony if the birds were back after escaping last night because of a little cage crack. We'd already decided to take an easy Sunday morning after our birds took flight without a warning. Lucky woke chirping, lively and strong. Could there be something outside going on? The notion came to place her back outside, secured her cage, and allowed her to guide. That's exactly what happened as Lucky sang. Though Tweety was spotted first, Stormy returned first to the gang. Eventually, Tweety decided to reunite. To our amazement, the duo made it through the night. Three birds of a feather back together through thick and thin, no matter the weather. Their journey landed them home safely to stay, demonstrating prayer works. Namaste. And so it is.